Scrolling on Facebook Marketplace one day at 7 a.m., as one does, and I found this listing for a leopard gecko. It was only $25, and as I further clicked on the pictures and was flipping through them, I realized that the enclosure did not have the basic things and care that a leopard gecko would need. For one, it didn't even have a water bowl. And so I messaged the lady as quickly as I could, because usually either Facebook Marketplace takes down the listing down or someone will snag it. And within a few hours, I went and picked up the leopard gecko. I asked her some questions. She said she had only been feeding him mealworms. He was a he, and she got him from Petco, and he was 3 years old. When I got home and I was inspecting the enclosure, she had put him on like gift wrap tissue paper, and it was like soaked with pee, and it had like this really tacky decor, but the decor is not important. And it had this heat mat with like dog or cat hair on it, and like a house that was just like a decor piece, but it took up half of the enclosure. And the mealworms that were still in the enclosure that turned into beetles. And she had said, she ran out of mealworms that day, but I really doubt it. So I cleaned out the entire enclosure. I scrubbed it down real good. I put kitchen like towel rolls, and I added a humid hide. I just washed the 2 hides that she had in there, and I added a water bowl and a calcium bowl. And obviously that's not an ideal setup, but for him, because he's very lethargic and he has a bunch of health issues, as I saw when I got home, so I gave him a soak, and he had a lot of stuck shed, especially on his fingers, and I noticed that there was something wrong with his eye. But I was like, okay, one step at a time. So I was trying to take care of his stuck shed on his fingers. Some of his fingers were like shorter because it seems like he has had stuck shed on for quite a while. And I had him drink some water. The poor guy was like parched. And even when he was sitting in the sink, like he just wouldn't move. Like he was so lethargic. I got a Q-tip. I tried to get the stuck shed off, but he was clearly bothered by it. Like I didn't want to hurt him. But I was able to get a significant amount off with these warm soaks. And yeah, it was just so heartbreaking. I was expecting him to have some issues, but not to the extent of issues that he had. It was really sad and entirely avoidable. Again, I don't know everyone's personal situation, so I'm not going to sit here and judge, but please do your research before you purchase a reptile. And here is the image of his eye abscess that after much research, I realized it was an eye abscess, and either the vet will drain it or it needs to be surgically removed. His was huge, especially when you were looking at him straight on. But I also noticed he had some stuck shed in his eye, so I think that's called like Repti rinse, and I got a Q-tip and I managed to get it off. That stuff is like magic, by the way. Since he has been fed mealworms basically all of his life, I knew he wouldn't have any interest in dubias, but it was concerning how he didn't have any interest in feeding. Like it didn't even trigger like a little bit of response, considering it was like moving and crawling all over the tub. I tried to feed him in the enclosure. He wouldn't take it. But I tried. I just wanted to see if he had any appetite, because the way that he was acting, I figured that he wouldn't. And I tried everything that I could. So I ended up getting some Repashy grub pie, which is a full diet for leopard geckos who are having like either to supplement their insectivore diet or as like a full diet if there's something wrong with them. So I just kind of put some on his nose and like rub it on his mouth and on the side of the tub, so he was able to lick it off. Otherwise he would not eat it. And obviously he wasn't eating like a significant amount, but he ate enough to pass it, which was great, because if he's pooping, that means, I don't know, it just gives me some reassurance. I ended up taking him to the vet. This vet was amazing. This is the first time I go to this particular vet. She knew her stuff, and he ended up having mouth rot. She took out the eye abscess with an incision. She said it was the size of a marble, and he had to have some injections. So he had the first injection for antibiotics there, and then I had to go every 3 days for 4 more sessions. So this was when we got home from the procedure and from like our first vet appointment, and I was just cleaning kind of like the pus that came out of his eye after the procedure, which the vet said would happen. And I was concerned about his lethargy, and she said the best way to really supplement like vitamin A and the proper vitamins for leopard geckos and really all reptiles is to gut feed or gut load your feeders with dark leafy greens, and that is the best way to give them the vitamin A and the vitamins that they need, rather than buying like over the counter like supplement like vitamin A droppers or whatever. Obviously still use calcium and stuff, but that was interesting because I had never heard anyone say that before. But you can see the like swelling around his eye went down significantly. This was still the same day of the procedure. And she also gave me this carnivore like powder mix that I would have to mix into like a pancake consistency, and she gave me a syringe that I would have to syringe feed him with a specific dosage. And you know, it was kind of hard. He was getting irritated, but you know, he had to take it. And this is him kind of like having a break between syringe feeds. It really did open up his appetite, and she said that it would. And yeah, his other eye was looking a bit better, but that eye still had a little bit of stuck shed. The vet also took off the remaining stuck shed off of his fingers and toes, which was great. And here he's just licking his lips after having some of that carnivore mix. Yeah, he was doing much better after the third injection, just like the vet said. She's like, typically after the third dose of antibiotic injections, they typically start to have more energy, and that was definitely the case with him. So yeah, it was encouraging after, you know, so many weeks and stuff of seeing him so lethargic. And here was the first time that he took a dubia and he actually showed interest in food. It was amazing. It took him quite a bit of time to actually get it down, but he did get it down. And here he kind of looks a bit like a bit gray because he was shedding. I did have to assist shed him, but you know what, that was to be expected with the condition that he was in. And I'm just so proud. Like, he has come such a long way, and he still has such a long way to go. But yeah, look at him nomming on that dubia roach. And you know what's so interesting is that now the dubias, because I've been feeding them the dark leafy greens, they, you know, like if you squeeze them, they'll kind of like I know this is a bit gross, but they'll have like kind of like green come out of them, because they've really been gut loaded with the like collard greens or mustard greens, or you know, the dark leafy greens that the vet recommended. So if you want to avoid this, please feed your feeders and feed them staple feeders. Mealworms are not staple feeders. And I just want to say that this entire experience really changed my mind about reptile keeping. It really gave me some insight and perspective about reptile keeping. This is my first ever rescue, and yes, it was like a huge financial burden, if you will say that, but it just made me feel like this hobby is not just a hobby, and it can be so much more. And also, it changed my perspective about like buying reptiles. I know this is not to say that I'll never buy a reptile again, but I will really consider rehomes before I ever consider buying a reptile. It's just, there's so many leopard geckos, there's so many bearded dragons, so many ball pythons, and so many of the common reptiles that you'll find in the hobby that went to homes that didn't do their research and are being neglected or not given the proper care, and then end up having so many health issues because of it. So if you're able to adopt or rescue or you know, get someone who's rehomed, like as a rehome, I really encourage that route. And it really did change my perspective. I kind of regret like not getting all of my reptiles as rehomes or whatever, but you know, it is what it is. Obviously, I'm not going to rehome all my reptiles just so I can get rehomed reptiles, you know what I mean? But it changed my perspective about the care that we provide for our reptiles, and how we take care of our reptiles, and how important husbandry is, so we can avoid a lot of these issues. So I hope this was helpful. And I hope you enjoyed this whole process. It was very tiring, but so rewarding, and I learned so much. And I decided to name this 3-year-old leopard gecko Shrimp, because he is just so cute. He's as cute as a button. And thanks for watching.